All right, this is Ruben Lowing. We are live, and it is Friday, March 6th. And I came across something recently I've heard about for years, and now we are in the throes of it. It's called the Silver Tsunami. And what is that? There's like, what is the numbers here? Let's look. Um, we've got uh, the 10,000 baby boomers a day are retiring, and and that's just the start, right? There's a massive liquidation of assets, real estate, the stock market. Um, there's the great de-risking as the baby boomers pull their money out for income and liquidate. The volatility increases. Um, if your money is in a leaky bucket, exposed to market crashes, you're at risk. Wow, that's huge. All right, and then the construction business, massive succession gap. It takes over the firms, um, the contractors, right, and builders. Who owns the equipment, all this kind of stuff. And then the other part is the family banking strategy. This is the counter strike. Okay, so we're going to talk about these sort of things. Um, the so let's put this in perspective. Okay, wow. So I went through the 2008 crash. It hit me first. So basically, I started off after I left the SEAL teams. I got into sales on total accident, right? And I had a little confidence in it. And then what happened was, um, I wasn't making enough money, right? And I found somebody that got into real estate. I'm like, really, you did that? If they could do it, I could do it, right? So I took a real estate principles course at the junior college, and I had all these, in there with all these smart college kids. And man, I didn't miss a class. I sat at the front of the class. I took copious notes. I studied because I felt I had to because I was up against these smart college kids, right? Well, I ended up graduating top of the class, got my real estate license right away, jumped right into I was already working for a, a mortgage lender, and they were doing the second mortgage, like the money store, 125 home improvement debt consolidation loans, and they were paying me as a non-licensed uh, originator, and $10 an hour, right, and a bonus for based on the scale. So the first month of my license, I hit the top of the bonus scale, and I looked at the difference in my income, and it was stupid. I was pissed, right? So the next month, I went straight commission, and I funded more loans, um, made more money, right? And then I was only getting 25% commission. And then when the interest rates started going down, first mortgage rates were more appealing than the second mortgage. And so I was working harder, making less money. So I went to work for another guy, ex Navy SEAL, had an MBA, went to law school, bipolar alcoholic. We don't get a fight every day, right? But he taught me a lot, right? So I worked for him for like a year. I was at a 50% split. And then I went on my own. I went 90-10. Um, I do mortgages and real estate. I had a bunch of lenders I could use. And I had, backing it up, um, I had got into this whole thing because I was a debt management consultant, and I wrote more business for that company. Anybody had done, my first month, anybody else had done for a year and a half, and then made me the manager. Every time I showed somebody how to get a debt, they start looking at buying a house or refinancing. So I got my license, and so I was still doing that. I was still helping people clean up their credit, you know, let them know what they needed to do for assets, you know, and so they could get into a house. And then, then I I shifted to construction lending when they came out with the no income, no asset verification loans. Plus, I was getting all kinds of construction loans coming at me because my hobby was shooting, and all these guys in the range came from the construction business: general contractors, civil engineers, land surveyors, people who were from general contractors, and so that's why I did that, and and that took the hit in 2006. That's when they'd overbuilt. Okay, and so I shifted to commercial lending, and that was like feast or famine. And you land when you eat really good, but you lose a lot of them. I used to joke around, like fly fishing for killer whales, right? And so then I found out about financial services. Okay, I'm like, gosh, I had all these people that I'd helped get into a house, get into debt, all right, but I knew they're never going to pay off that mortgage. They're never going to be able to save enough to retire. Uh, so that's why I got it. So I had all these people that I know needed help, right? And that's what got me started. Now, didn't have the strategies then that I have now. Okay, this family banking or infinite banking strategy. This is this is a game changer. Okay, so I'm not gonna I'm not gonna show any graphs or anything like that right now because I'm just gonna talk you through it. But I was this company I work for now, All Into Life. That was one of their platforms, the family banking strategies, and I wanted to understand it. And with my debt management background, I had a good idea, but it wasn't. I really didn't have the nuts and bolts of it. Okay, and so I called up the product providers, and they explained it to me. And so now I'm like, oh, this is how it works, right? So let me try to give you an idea. So because I have these numbers memorized, if somebody has a mortgage at $338,400 at 5% interest, their monthly principal and interest payment on the mortgage is $1,886 a month. But only $500 a month goes toward principal. That's why it takes 30 years to pay off that mortgage. Okay, so then what they do is we open up a policy. Okay, and it's a whole life policy. And it's a big enough policy that you can overfund it by the amount of the mortgage. So just hypothetically, let's say this is a guy's 22 years old and his what's called a target premium, or the minimum that he can pay into that policy, is $135 a month. Okay, but he could overfund it to over $2,000 a month. So he pays $2,000 a month into that policy, and he borrows the $1,886 a month out every month and pays his mortgage on time. And now this could work for other debt, credit cards, car payments, student loans, whatever, right? And so you put it all in the policy and then borrow it all back out. It's called a wash. Okay, well, which means they give you a credit for the interest, and there's enough to there's enough. I got somebody messing with my computer. Wow, this is interesting. Okay, here we go. Hang on. Get out of my computer. I got somebody hacked me. This is really wild. All right. So I'm back on. I got control of it. Okay. That's really crazy. That's really crazy. All right. So what I was explaining was the uh, the ability to um, borrow the money out of the policy in an awash loan, pay your bills on time. So in this scenario, this person running the $1,886 a month through his policy and paying his bills on time, he'll get full credit for that $1,886 a month within that policy. And so it grows faster. So in 9.2 years, he's got enough money in the policy to pay off the remaining balance of that mortgage. So now he borrows that money out of the policy and pays off his mortgage. Now he's free and clear. So I'm thinking to myself, what would this do? What would this do? Let's say he wanted to buy a 4-unit. All right. So I talked to a lot of people about the NACA program for first-time home buyers. They'll put you in a 4-unit property, 100% financing, no closing costs. You get about a 1% better interest rate than you would for a conforming loan. All right. And live in 1 unit and rent the other 3 out. They actually let you use the other 3 units to qualify. Okay. So that's NACA. So if you go to my website, my website's, my business is your business. Oh, that's what they did. Somebody was hacked me through my website. That's what it was. That's crazy. All right. So the doing this, right? They borrow from their primary residence that they've paid off now. So 9.2 years, they got it all paid off. Now they borrow enough money out of the policy to put a down payment on a 4-unit. So this is about $1 million. So they put in about 200,000, 250,000, and they put a down payment down. Now they got enough rents coming from those 4 units to cover that mortgage on that property and for their primary residence. Okay. And so now they open up a new policy for the 4-unit. Okay. And they're just running that money through there every month. And so at the end of the, at the end of 20 years, both of those properties are paid off. The primary residence was paid off in like 7.5, and then right at 20 years total. So it'll be 10 years on that mortgage, but 20 from the time you bought the primary residence until they've paid off both the 4-unit. And so now he's got 2 properties free and clear, just cash flowing. And he's got $450,000 in that whole life policy. Right. And so he's got almost $1 million between the 2 policies. Right. Now, another 30 years, he's got $1 million in one, and like almost $2 million he's got. And now here's the thing about whole life. They got a guaranteed interest rate. So it's like 5.125. They're different, but on the average, that's what it is, right? And so no matter what the market's doing, you're not at risk, okay? And on the borrowed money, they actually give you that guaranteed rate of return on that borrowed money. That's the only financial vehicle that'll do that. Not Universal Life, not 401k. Oh, we're going to get into that, right? So all these things going on, right? So let's say you bought a 4-unit and you turned it into an assisted living facility. All right. You'd always have tenants. You'd never have vacancies ever. Okay. And you could go into business, get some licenses, go into business, right? And you could even make more money than just the rents on those properties, right? So it's a lot. That's one thing you could do with this silver tsunami. I was last weekend. I was going to a networking event. I got there a little early, so I went to lunch. And I saw this couple come in with this older gentleman. I thought they were taking their dad to lunch, right? But the guy was deaf, so he's talking really loud. and I hear what they're talking about. And what it was a real estate agent and his wife. They were listing this senior gentleman's house because his wife had passed, his kids were grown. He didn't want to deal with the maintenance of the house. He wanted somebody else to handle that. He wanted to go live into a communal living facility, and they were listing his house. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then so I go to my event, and it was at a uh, assisted living facility for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. It said community fair. That's what it said, right? And that's what I thought it was. Well, I'm seeing all of these hospice nurses and you know care providers, in-home care providers that are there, and I'm like, oh wow, this is interesting, right? And they were all familiar with what I offer. Okay, the life insurance, living benefits, and the annuities with the living benefits, and the oh, how are you? How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, did you? So you just came on, so you missed most of the
I missed
beginning.
it.
No, 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 no.
Oh,
You didn't miss all of it. You just, I just pretty much got started already. But I'm excited to have you
okay.
on. All
Well,
right.
thank you.
So I was actually just talking about last weekend,
Ah,
and,
okay.
and what happened was what I was saying is I got there a little early, and I didn't know what to expect. It said community fair. I'm thinking there's people from the community. They're gonna have their kids there. That's my market. Married, 25 to 45, married, got kids, own a house with a mortgage, right? And
Yep.
and so I got there a little early, about an hour and a half early. So I went to lunch at the Black Walnut down the street, right? And I'm on the patio. I'm just having a BLT and a glass of lemon water, whatever, just waiting. And this couple comes in with this older gentleman. So I'm thinking this guy's taking his dad to lunch, right?
Hmm.
Well, the guy was deaf, talked really loud, so I heard everything that was going on. And it was a real estate agent and his wife. They were listing this guy's house. His wife had passed, his kids were grown. He didn't want to deal with the maintenance, upkeep of the house. He wanted to go into a communal living facility and have somebody else take care of all that, right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. Then I go to that event. I'm like, oh gosh, y'all are hospice nurses and in-home care providers, and I'm like, that's crazy. So that night, I'm on my computer, and I see my old. So I used to be in the mortgage real estate business. I was when I left the SEAL teams, I self-educated on personal finance and debt management. I became I put some strategies to work for myself, got myself out of debt using a debt roll-up strategy. I entered an ad in the paper as a debt management consultant. And long story short, I wrote more business for that company than anybody else had done for them in a year and a half. My first month, and they made me the manager. And
Oh,
every
wow.
every time I showed somebody how to get out of debt, they start looking at buying a house. So I got my real estate license. I started doing mortgages and real estate. And I tell people if I had a crystal ball, I couldn't have picked a better time than that to do that when I did. And that was like '98, and then about 2006, things kind of changed, and I shifted to uh, construction lending. But my crystal ball wasn't working because that's right when that crashed, right? And then I
Mm.
shift to um, commercial lending, and that was like feast or famine. And you land when you eat really good, but you lose a lot of them. I used to joke around, it's like fly fishing for killer whales, right? If you land when you eat really good, and but you lose a lot of them. And
Hmm.
then I got invited to a broker luncheon, and I got introduced to financial services. I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people I'd help get into a house. I knew they were never going to pay off those mortgages. I knew they were never going to be able to save enough to retire. They were going to, they were going to be in debt the rest of their life.
Mm.
And now I'm like, I got a way to help them, right? So that's how I kind of launched my career in financial services, right? And that so now I'm so that the guy that was my title rep back then, uh, Ryan Lipsey is his name. He's the Ty Court title, and he had a podcast going on LinkedIn. And they were talking about, because they make money when a real estate agent gets a sale or a mortgage company gets a loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they were talking about this silver tsunami, where
Mm-hmm.
all these baby boomers are coming to retirement. And, they were, it was a shift in the market. There's all these properties are going to come up to be listed
Mm-hmm.
for these people aging out of their properties, right? And I'm like, and they're given, how do these realtors, how do they get in front of them, right? And then so the next day, Saturday, I went to the Houston Builders and Investors Group meeting. And there was only like 4 people there. There was 2, counting me. There was 4 people counting me, right?
Oh, wow.
And so there was 2 Asian guys and this college age young lady, right? And the 2 Asian guys, they'd been here in Texas for a long time. They were very Americanized, and one of them was a builder. And what he was doing was he was doing the apartment conversions. He was taking, condo conversions. That's what he was doing. He was converting, apartment complexes to condos. And he's telling me the challenges he was having with that. And then the other guy was in the commercial side, and he talked about his horror story. Was he in a group, 5 investors bought a hotel right during COVID, and they ended up like having to let it go into foreclosure because it was just sucking up their savings. And that had happened to me. That happened to me in 2008. I had an investment property, and it was things got rough. Right. And so I kind of, but it ended up going to foreclosure. So I'm thinking to myself, if he would have known and converted that hotel into an assisted living facility, he'd have been doing all right.
Yeah, true.
Right. So I have a lot of, because of my background, I have a lot of people that come from the real estate field, real estate investor, and people in that field are in my database. Okay. And so I help them get their clients, I help them get their credit scores up. Have you been on my website, mybusinessisyourbusiness.info?
Yes, I visited it when just after we met.
Okay. So you'll see there's it's called Score Navigator down, if you scroll down, and that is a consumer dashboard. The guy that actually, set up the credit bureaus for, the software to manage for the, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. He came up with that. Okay. And his son actually manages that business. Okay. And so for like, $49 a month, you can have all 3 credit bureaus, and it'll help you. It'll tell you exactly what you got to do to get your score. If you want a score to be, if you want your score to be over 700, it'll tell you exactly what you got to do to get your score up that. But once you get at that, then you drop it down to just like 1 bureau, and it's like $6 a month, but you can manage your credit. So I have that because it does all the work that I used to do for people, and it'll do it for them now. So I don't have to do that.
Nice.
Okay. And but the point I'm making is I help real estate agents make people into buyers. Okay.
Love it.
Right. And then, but seeing, this shift, right? These seniors, like a lot of the products I offer with the life insurance, they have riders for long-term care, catastrophic illness, chronic illness riders. So up to 90% of your policy can go toward those needs.
Nice. Okay.
So if you have, a $500,000 policy, you're at like 45,000 or 450,000 of that can go to cover, your stay in a nursing home, or your in-home care, all that kind of stuff, right? So
very nice.
Now, but the trick, but the people that you're dealing with, they're past that point, right? If they don't have it set up yet, they're SOL. Okay. And so there's a lot of things that people can do. What they'll do is they'll tap their assets, their real estate.
Mhm.
They'll, they'll put a lien on the property. And so when they pass, then the family has to sell that property, and whatever lien there is goes to the provider,
Mhm.
goes to the insurance company. Okay. So that's how that all works. Do you understand how that all works?
Yes, and I've had to actually help people on a personal and professional note manage some of those different scenarios. So yeah.
Oh, can you tell how?
Well, for example, got a referral for a gentleman who essentially had a daughter who lived in town but was not very close. The man lived in his own home and was constantly having to call the fire department for falls. And so
Oh.
the fire department was like, look, you've got to get, a different scenario going on because this is not how we're best leveraged. And essentially there was a gentleman, realtor, who helped with downsizing. So anyway, somehow or another, I was helping support referral business for the home care industry, and his name came up. But when I spoke to him, he was like, I know what I need to do. I'm just not ready to do it. Like I need to he said, this is all I have. This is my home. This is all I have. And his biggest concern was if he sells, like that's, that's kind of all he has left type thing. He's like, my daughter doesn't come to see me. I know I can't keep calling the fire department. I know I need to, get rid of this home, but this is just all I have. So he was kind of leaning on the support of, his personal community, calling neighbors for help and things of that nature. But it was just a really sad situation. I mean, at that point, you can give people information and education, but at some point you just have to say, I am here when you are ready. And so that's kind of where we left things, but just, giving him as much information, pointing him in direction. But at a certain point, I said, well, have your daughter call me. Maybe it's a situation where she can help gently nudge you in a different direction. But, sometimes when people feel their back is up against the wall, it takes some self-reflecting for them to determine what their next best step is.
So did his provider, they did that. They actually, they signed a quit claim deed, and he got, they were able to tap his equity in his house. Is that what they did?
The last that I left that situation, he did not make any definitive move in either direction. It's like he understood what needed to happen, but to my knowledge, he was just contemplating on next steps. And so, at that point, you want to be an ally and help support, like I said, provide resources. But until a person is ready, all you can do is be there when they call you,
Okay, so you came from you were a nurse, and then how did you transition into the hospice side?
No, so I'm not a nurse.
Oh,
I've always been on the relationship side of things in terms of just educating the marketplace, being a consultant, providing information and resources of that nature. So I've never been a nurse. My hat goes off to the clinical team and all that they do. But no, I've never been a nurse.
Okay. So I'm with All Into Life. And the guy that got me with All Into Life, we were both with another company, a very large company. And he was like, we were both on the same team in San Diego, California. And we both were recruited by the same senior marketing director. And Danny was a corpsman with them on the green side with the Marine Corps, and me being a Navy SEAL, we had some rapport. And I ended up going through some issues in my life, divorce, my industry collapsed, right? And so I ended up leaving the industry and doing other things. I went out to the Indian Ocean in 2011 as an anti-piracy security agent.
Wow.
At like 55 years old, right? And
wow.
Yeah, and like that was like not for me.
Kudos to you. Well, but still, you you tried something that was very drastic. So kudos to you for being brave to do that.
Well, it bored me to tears because there was no action, right? I mean, you're just riding the ship, right? And they didn't mess with us because they knew we had guns. The pirates, you could see them, they see us, we see them, right? And they don't mess with. They were looking for the low hanging fruit, right? They're looking for somebody that is not going to give them resistance. And so, long story short, that led me to the drone industry, and which was fascinating. My job was, I work for MTSI, Modern Technology Solutions Incorporated. They do all the image processing and data management for the military drones. And so my job was traveling all over the country. So me and my business partner in 1984 300 Mercedes diesel drove across the US 4 times in a year trying to find anybody doing anything with drones.
Oh, wow.
And I learned more stuff, in it, like about, the different sensors, the photogrammetry and LiDAR for surveying, the multispectral and hyperspectral cameras for precision ag applications and other stuff, right? And so, at first I thought my head was going to explode. It was just so much information so fast, right? But I absorbed it all, right? And I got to meet some really interesting people. When you go on my LinkedIn profile, it's ex-military people, it's people from the mortgage real estate side of the world, and the drone industry. Those are basically the 3 type entities, right? And then 6 months into it, the FAA put a blanket restriction on commercial drone operations and put me out of business.
Oh, wow.
And so I ended up working right at the beginning of the transition into LED lighting. I worked for one of the first companies to have do the manufacturing in China. They had the first OEM in China manufacturing LED lights. And I was their estimator. So that was getting the contractors to use the LED lights in the construction of these new buildings, even though they were specified with, incandescent, fluorescent, metal halide type of lighting, getting them to go to the LED side. And it was really hard because LED lights were more expensive up front, but you save money over time, right?
Ideally, the next segment to market that transition of emerging technology would have been more of the architectural firms.
Well, that's what we figured out. That's what I figured out for them.
Yeah.
So I set them all up to do that, right? And then I went down to the Rio Grande Valley because my mother married my stepdad was from Rio Bravo, Mexico, and my mom from Michigan. They would summer in the Rio Grande or in Rio Bravo, Mexico. And so I went down there 2014 from like Thanksgiving to New Year's, and then I went back in 2015 and I stayed, and I got a call out of the blue. It was actually the scientist that came up with the PCR system for NASA. We were trying to figure out how to use a drone in the air to find listeria in the dirt. And I could never figure out how to do that. But when I updated my LinkedIn profile that I had moved to Edinburgh, Texas, and he calls me up, he goes, "We need somebody there." So he was part of food safety. So they used the PCR system to test for E. coli, Ebola, Listeria, Salmonella, that kind of stuff. And they also sold cleaners, degreasers, and sanitizers to the produce warehouses, and they did consulting, all that. So this one guy who was a retired Army Ranger Colonel, Vietnam vet, he did like 12 tours in Vietnam. He had a PhD, has his own university specifically for the food safety industry, and I was his representative in the Rio Grande Valley. And that's where I came to understand that this was called synergistic business strategies. And if you go on my website, there's all kinds of information about that, right? There's a video about that. I talk about that, right? Where you use the same knowledge base for multiple businesses. And so you can create those multiple income streams. All right. And so this guy was making money from all 6 of these businesses that he owned. Right. And I was his rep. I was the one representing all of them, but that's how I got to understand that. Right. And then, of course, that works great for the drone business, too, because you could be you get your Part 107 license, and you can fly for real estate photography. You can do it for precision ag applications. You can do it for photogrammetry, LiDAR for surveying. You can in here in Houston. I like to talk to trade schools.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's smart.
Because these people that once they get their credential, whatever it is, whether it's the barber college or cosmetology or welding or HVAC, automotive repair, they're going to make more money than they ever thought of.
Mm-hmm.
And getting them to start, it's easy to show a 22-year-old putting away $650 a month out of his $5,000 a month paycheck, that by the time he's 57, he's got $1 million with all these tax advantages, and he don't have to work again if he don't want to.
Mm.
Right. And so, because the time's your greatest asset when you're young.
True.
But when you're older, so you're over 45, you don't have that time. And so then it's getting those multiple streams of income using that same knowledge base to create those streams of income.
Yeah.
Okay, so this strategy works for businesses also. And I saw this, I'm educating myself. There was a Navy reserve commander who went from active duty to reserve, used his VA loan to buy his house, and he implemented this banking strategy to pay off his mortgage on his house faster, and save that same money. Okay, so the same money you're using to pay that mortgage is now accumulating for you with all these tax advantages and protection and rate of return and all that. Well, he bought a fitness center. He refinanced his house and he just kept, and then he ended up buying like 4 different fitness centers, creating these different streams of income, the franchises from that. Right. And I'm like, oh, so I have a connection with the franchise, the Veterans Franchise Board. They help veterans get into franchises.
Mm-hmm.
One of those is the Quick Mount, the Heroes Initiative, right? So if you're a veteran, they waive the $30,000 franchise fee, and what the business is you're mounting flat screen TVs into homes and businesses.
I gotcha.
And that's another industry that is affected by this silver tsunami.
So true.
Because what do these people do when they're tired? They're staying home and they're watching TV, right? They're
watching.
They got.
Oh, yeah.
Remember it was like 57 channels, ain't nothing on. There's way more channels than that, right? Now, right? You got all kinds of apps, whether it's Prime or Hulu or even YouTube and stuff. The people watching all kinds of that's what they're doing, right? So I figured out, if somebody's mounting 4 flat screens a day, 5 days a week, that's a $7,500 a month income.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was working for LED City up in Dallas. They had this great digital signage technology, video wall technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, if they mounted one 10 by 20, video wall in an event center or a church or something, they would double their income. All right. And so then I'm in the hair business. So I had a girlfriend that she's quasi famous in the entertainment industry. She does all the hair and makeup for shows like Dancing with the Stars and CSI New York and Dean Cain's hair and Tony Braxton's hair and nails and all that. But she was also a master wig maker. And so she back then, and this is 15 years ago, she made like, $450 every time somebody came in to get their wig done. The health insurance companies pay for those prosthetic hair pieces. They were in like every 3 weeks. Okay.
Wow.
And now she had gotten into a lot of debt in 2008, because she went from like $240,000 a year to like $120,000 a year in 2008, and she had a lot of debt. She had gone to the payday loan places, and she would take all that and go dump it right to the debt. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. So I set her up with a debt roll-up strategy so she could keep her cash flow and still pay her debt off faster.
Very nice.
Okay. And then I set her up with a business line of credit at her bank so she didn't have to go back to them anymore. Okay. So all these things I did for her. And then she started getting me talking to her friends who were cosmetology instructors and had their own salons. And that's where I learned, those women, there's no pension, there's no 401k in the hair business. If they do not save their money, they'll stand behind a chair the rest of their life. Okay. And so I've probably talked to that industry more than anybody else.
Okay.
And I promote. So there's a banner. You see her picture that I took of her on my website, Bridget's Essence of Beauty. And she offers wig making classes online. And, somebody adds that to their repertoire in the beauty industry, they will significantly increase their cash flow. And the whole reason I started that website is because I got so tired of people that they're making just enough money to cover their expenses. There was no discretionary. There was nothing I could help them with. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I make them more money, now we can do something with them. Yeah. Right. I can help them get ahead. Right. So people in that industry can significantly, step up their savings and toward their retirement, by adding something like that, or like the electricians or the video installers, right? That are, they can, add a video wall, to their bag of tricks, right? And they can increase their cash flow. So that's what I do.
Gotcha.
Okay. But there's, what's really crazy is the guy that got me involved with this company, his name's Danny Kravitz. Okay. And he's part of the Patriot Equity Partners. He was a corpsman on the green side with the Marine Corps. And when he got out of the military, he got into nursing. And he was a hospice nurse.
Wow.
And he used to joke around that he was the highest paid nurse in San Diego, California, right? And then he got into financial services, right? And he's in that market, right, where this kind of stuff, gets people's attention. I'll talk to people, a family, and I'm like, let's show you how I can set this up. You get this tax advantaged, plan, right? That's going to set you up, right? And yeah, they can, you can put money away for your kids' college, and it won't count against them on the FAFSA form when it comes time to go to college. And they're like, it just. But all of a sudden, somebody in their family dies, and they got to sell chicken plates to pay for the funeral. Now there's yeah, right. Oh, what's the guy? The actor.
I know. He told me.
He I got a blog on it. Yeah, he was in The Ship, right? That series where it was a apocalyptic situation, and there's a Navy ship that's the only one, that and they're traveling all over the ocean, going to different ports and dealing with things. But he was the star of that, right? And big muscular guy, good looking guy, and he got Lou Gehrig's disease. And he just died. He's like in his 50s. And his family had to do a GoFundMe.
It's horrible.
To pay for his funeral and pay for, take care of his kids. So it's you being in the business you're in. I mean, I'm sure, you see both sides of it. You see people that are prepared, and you see people that aren't. Right. And it's we're getting it. But there's also people, that, like my sweet spot is between 25 and 45, married, got kids, own a house with a mortgage, or a small business owner. Now, do you own? Are you the owner of
Of Trinity Hospice?
Yeah.
No, I'm just one of the recent consultants that have joined the team
Okay. Okay. How long have you been with them?
since January. So I'm starting the year out with a new organization, and it's been an exciting run so far. So I'm definitely proud to be able to represent the company, and more importantly, just help members and communities in Houston be able to rely on a trusted partner. So yeah.
So the reason I'm doing this podcast today, and I'm so grateful that you came on. I was on a call with the Christian Entrepreneurs Club,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a coaching call and primarily talking about marketing. And there's guys that were, landscapers, had a car detailing business, author was on there, right? And then they
Mm-hmm.
got to me and they said, like, well, what's your product?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, it depends on what you need. It's going to depend on what somebody's needs are to determine what I'm going to offer them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing this for years, and people I used to be with a company that recruited. And I used to like, because I came from the mortgage business, this made sense to me, right? I'm used to looking at people's finances and seeing what they have as far as assets go. I'm looking, what their debt to income ratio is. I'm looking at, so this kind of stuff was not foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would intentionally try to target accountants or mortgage loan professionals, right? But there was something about it that just didn't resonate. It was like, my joke is, it was like trying to teach a drunk woman how to do the contemporary double two-step. They couldn't make that transition from side to other side, walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I only know that because I've tried to do that. They just can't get it, right? And
Yeah.
And so with now understanding why Danny has done so well, because he's in that industry with doctors and nurses and X-ray technicians and ultrasound technicians. They see these health issues, right? They see people that, because of something happening, they're getting older, they're not, that income generation time in their life is shortened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, so that's why, see, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. It was like when I was in the mortgage business, all of a sudden I started getting all these construction loans coming at me. I'm like, where are these? How am I? What? Why? Well, what it was is one of my next door neighbor was my best friend. Our wives were best friends. Our kids were best friends. Our dogs were best friends. And he was the number one land surveyor in the country in like 2004. And because he was the first one to learn how to use a robotic surveyor scope
Mm-hmm.
and a handheld GPS, so he could do more by himself than a 4-man team could do.
Wow, with technology.
Right. And so we were both range masters at the South Bay Rod and Gun Club in San Diego, California. And I was working on the trap range. I was the range master on the trap range, shooting clay pigeons.
Mm-hmm.
And when we would be done, I would go up to the pistol range, and he was a range master on the pistol range. And he just bought this Browning high power 45 with a Colt frame, fit my hand perfect. And he was like shooting, and it was all over the paper. And he's like, there must be something wrong with these sights. I'm like, well, can I try it? And he's like, sure. So I literally shot the bullseye right out of the target. And then
show off.
I was watching him, and what had happened was he was trying to look over the front sight to watch the bullet hit the paper.
Mm.
And I'm like, dude, you're not that fast. Just keep your focus on the front sight. Grip with your left hand instead of your right hand. Pull that trigger straight back, and get back on that front sight after the round goes off. Get that second sight, right? Well, then he only threw one round out of the paper, so everybody saw that, right? Then they all started coming to me to be able to teach them to shoot better. And when I actually left the military, that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a marksmanship trainer, right? But that's like an impossible business to do in San Diego, California. The laws are just like so restrictive.
Yeah.
Right. But what happened is all these people at the range were civil engineers, land surveyors, general contractors, people that work for general contractors, and they were coming to me to do their construction loans.
Okay.
So that's why I started learning about you finding your niche, right? And and so anyway, so with everything that we've talked about here, okay, is there anything that you want to know about? Is there any financial questions you have?
I'd probably have to reserve the balance of any questions at a later time, but this was definitely intriguing just to hear, if nothing else, your story and all that you've been able to contribute in terms of your breadth of knowledge. So I just appreciate the time to listen and kind of learn a little bit more. And you certainly piqued my interest in terms of being able to use you as a reference to pass off to people in different industries. So I just appreciate being able to sit back and learn a little bit more about your tenure and your story. Thank you.
Well, if you've been to my website, the very first thing that you see this great graphic, with the Navy SEAL, in the helicopter in the background. The next to him is the knight with the sword, right? And it's the Warrior Steward mission assessments, right? And it says, start your mission. That is it's a click through, and it's just an assessment. Okay, and it just gives me an idea of where you are, and then there's a place there's on the bottom you can schedule on my Calendly when I can follow up with you and see what I have in my bag of tricks that can help you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So one of the big things, it's like if somebody's like over 50, the chances are if you're a government employee, you can do an enforced rollover. Okay, some private companies, if you got a 401k and you're over 50 or 55, you can do an enforced. So you don't have to quit the company, but you can roll over your 401k into an annuity that has guarantees. So, and like right now, like if you're in the market right now, people are freaking out because the market's down. Okay. But did you know since 2012, what the S&P 500 has averaged since 2012?
I think you recently shared somewhere around, is it 20%? 28%,
28.5%, right? So do you know what the rule of 72 is? You know?
I do. I've heard of it. Yep.
Okay. It's a law of compound interest. Einstein gets credit for it. He didn't come up with it. It was like Socrates or somebody like that, right? But he called it the eighth wonder of the world. So whatever interest rate you earn on your money divided into the number 72 determines how fast your money doubles. So if you got 28.5% on your money, how fast do you think, it'd be 2.5 years and you've doubled your money.
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
Oh, yeah.
So if you look at what you have right now, and if you can get that kind of return. Now, some of the products we offer, like these annuities, have guarantees like 5 or 6%. You're going to, no matter what the market does, you're going to get that much. Okay, toward your retirement income stream. It's not really the actual balance in your account, but it's what they pay you out. Let's say they pay out, if you got $1 million and they pay you out 5%, that's $50,000 a year. Okay, so like some companies will give you like the highest daily balance, whatever, right? Okay, and so the market could be like be like standing in a racquetball court and throwing a Super Bowl ball as hard as you can, right? That's kind of what the market does sometimes, like right now, right? And so when you have that guarantee, you don't sweat it, right? and then there's some like these index universal life policies. They got, I got a graph that shows from 2000 to 2012 comparing a index universal life with a 0% floor
Mm-hmm.
to a variable universal life with no floor. You're in the market, right? And I used to sell those. And it was like, you talked about dollar cost average because when the market's down, you're buying it on sale. And when it goes up, everything goes up, right? Well, in that graph, and it goes from 2000 to 2012, the index universal life was up like 148%. And the index universe, or the variable universal life, with all the ups and downs, was like 0.48, not even 0.5%, because of,
Wow.
see, so they say zero's the hero when the market's down 30, right? Right. So so these, I mean, and there's so many, because of my background, there's so many things that I can, like, when I'm talking to somebody who's like here in Houston, there's a welding school that is one of 3 in the country that teach underwater welding.
Mm-hmm.
There's one in Washington State, and there's one in like Rhode Island. Okay. And but they also teach them how to fly a drone.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a welder and you've got your Part 107 license to fly a drone. You get a contract to inspect water towers or pipelines.
Mm-hmm.
You fly your drone, you find the leak, or you break out your cutting torch and your welder, and so now you're making more money.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. I'm talking to this young fella that just 22 years old, making 60,000 a year. He's got $5,000 a month discretionary. $5,000 a month. He's take home, or he's grossed 5,000 a month, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about how to make money. He was like, wow, I was going to get my certification to become a welder. I'm like, yeah, there you go. Now you can work on tractor trailers. You can fix their trailers, whatever, or you can break. You can make some more money, right? So it's just that mindset of
Yeah.
being able to take, people that have a business mindset, or marketing, or customer service. There's a lot of things that knowledge that you have apply into certain types of businesses that you can create those multiple streams of income, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start seeing, look at, like, we go through when we use the rule of 72. When I first learned that, man, I was using it for future planning. I was business planning, and putting those numbers to work, right? At this rate of return, what would I need to be able to buy? Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you own your house here in Houston?
I do.
Okay. So is it, if you got a mortgage on your house, there may be some things here we can do. If you know people that are just getting started, right? Have you ever heard of NACA?
I have heard of NACA. I can't remember the details of the organization, but that name is definitely ringing a bell.
Well, I found out about it. I was at a coffee shop, and this real estate agent started telling me about it. And it's a nationwide program, and there's offices all over the country. And people have to get into their program, and they make them adhere to a budget.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're part of their program, and like every month they have to get with a counselor and see how you're doing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you 3 years worth of tax returns, they can get you in a property for a first time home buyer, 100% financing, no down payment, no closing costs. They'll even get you in a 4-unit. You can live in 1 unit, rent the other 3 out. They'll let you use the rents from the other 3 units to qualify.
Mm.
All right. So if you know anybody, I talk about this with young people all the time, because, I wish I would have known that, then what I know now. I'd have been in a 4, that's what I'd have done. I'd lived in 1 unit, rented the other 3 out, right? And got myself started in real estate investing. But so
The
there's
more you know.
right. And so once they get into that, when they get that mortgage, now I can help them pay that mortgage off faster and stack up money for their future quicker.
Mhm.
Right. So if everybody, I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. I don't know if you have I don't know how much of an entrepreneurial bent that you have, but I got a lot of tricks in my bag, and most of them are on my website.
Well, I really appreciate this. This was definitely a treat listening to all your different services, and I know for sure I stand to benefit. So I just appreciate you sharing and just kind of exploring and walking through the website what's available.
All right. Well, do you think you'll get on there and complete the assessment?
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Okay, great. And then we can talk later. Now you're married, right?
I am not married.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably the next podcast.
That's too funny. No. All I can do now, my boxing coach, Roy Jones Sr. You ever heard of Roy Jones Jr.?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so his dad used to say, that a lot of wisdom came out of his mouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he'd say, when you learn things the hard way, those lessons stay with you the rest of your life. You never forget them. But the problem is when you learn it the hard way, it's the hard way. And you can't, that new information that you gained from that mistake doesn't benefit you at all, except to be able to tell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's always better to learn from somebody else's mistakes. Okay. And then the other thing that he said was, when in the boxing ring, in a fight, both guys think they're going to kick the other guy's ass.
Yeah.
The first one that changes their mind loses.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you got two people, if he thinks he's going to beat you and you think he's going to beat you, you got two people working on the same thing and it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in a relationship, okay, especially when it comes to the finances, and I see it all the time where he's got his money in his debt and she's got her money in her debt, and neither of the two shall meet. Okay. It's just so hard to get ahead because you're really pulling against each other. And usually those relationships, I've seen it more times than ever, they dissolve. Okay. But if you both get on the same page, and the statistics for relationships, marriages staying together, first, the number one is that you've got it, like you went to school together, you've known each other since you were kids, your husband is your brother's best friend, right? Or you're best friends with your husband's sister.
History.
So, those connections, the peanut gallery's on your side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing is, maybe you got a cause that you're, or a business that you're both focused on. So there's something else besides the bedroom and getting the kids successfully out of the house that you have in common. Because in the Navy, it happens all the time. Because once that guy retires and the kids are out of the house, those marriages disintegrate. That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
So so that, there's, the first thing though, if you can get on the same page with the finances, okay, then you've got half the battle won.
Well, I'll keep that in mind.
So that's, I joke around that, when I become independently wealthy and I can do what I want, I'm going to start a course for young men.
Hey, there you go.
Telling them what to look for. Well,
there you go.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you made the whole call, so I appreciate it. And let me just send me a text when you've got it. I get an email when you fill out the assessment, but send me a text when you do.
Okay, sounds good.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Bye-bye.